On? Are we on?
Are we alive?
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
live.
it's recording. Amazing. Okay, so I don't know what episode we're on, but welcome back to the Ordinary Experience. Today I have with me, it's Kunal, right?
Yep, it is.
I always want to say Kunal, but I know it's Kunal. How you doing, bud?
I am very well. Thank you for having me on, man. Really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you coming on. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I took a 2-week hiatus. I couldn't match up with people's timings. Other people things didn't work out, but I've been looking forward to this because I know you're a Kobe fan. I know you're a sport fan.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff that I want to dig in with you today regarding just sport in general, just body transformation, and just get your take and your journey through it. Because I know I've got to know you from Clubhouse, got to know you from your Instagram. I see you doing amazing things for people.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know the journey where it started. Simple as that. And we can go off on any tangent that you want. I know I'd love to talk about Kobe and what he means to you.
Yeah.
And yeah, let's go from there.
So let's start with Kobe because obviously it's literally fresh in my mind right now. But Kobe is the reason why. So I did a whole trip in America in 2019. End of 2019. I'm an online coach, so I'm very, very fortunate. I can work anywhere in the world as long as you got Wi-Fi. So Kobe is the reason why I went to America in that instance to watch basketball and NFL. We did like a month in America, and it was basically 15. We watched about 13 games in 15 cities, and it was literally.
You watched 13 games?
Yeah. And this wasn't just basketball
That's
only. This was also American football. So it was like I went to watch Cowboys versus Patriots up in the bleachers in New England to watch. It was Brady's like final season. Like I got to see Brady in New England, and I was like, I spent a lot of money on that ticket. It was -5 up in the bleachers. I'm only wearing Yeezys, by the way, when I'm there, and they look at me so crazy. Like they thought we were like on drugs because they looked at us. They're like, nice shoes. That's what they said, and I was like, okay, they said that to us right now. And I looked at my buddy and I was like, okay, they said nice shoes, and they're all dressed like fishermen. And I was thinking, and I couldn't believe this, right? I was thinking, okay, they're all dressed like fishermen right now, and I'm here wearing joggers, which they're not anything crazy, and I'm wearing a big puffer jacket. That's it, and my Yeezys. And then I was like, damn. And then we went up there and we were like, yeah, now I know why they're dressed like fishermen at this very stage. And it was absolutely nuts. Obviously, it was a game that only had one touchdown. Brady threw it to Nikhil Harris, one of the wide receivers. But it's good to see like Brady's element, Dak in his element. I'm a big fan of Dak as well. But it was a huge primetime game. It was on Fox and everything, and we got to do that. So it was and the reason why I mentioned Kobe there because Kobe was well known back in like when I was in high school, probably 2008, 2009. And Lil Wayne came up with a song called Kobe Bryant. I'm not sure if you ever heard it. Yeah. So, and I knew the song word from word.
Word for word.
Yeah, I knew the song exactly. Like when I was in year 9, I knew the song word for word. Even the whole Stephen A. At the start, he goes, "He's the best player in the world. No one can be." Like, I knew that exact, like everything there. So I knew about Stephen A. even from back then. And then I started watching a lot more basketball from that like era. I remember it was them against the Celtics. They were kind of fighting against it. And again, Americans are brilliant at marketing, right? Like they can market across the world. That's the beauty of it, right? Like
it's the weirdest thing when they say, and you listen to the language that they use when they win a title. It's like you are world champion.
Yep.
But you're world champion, but it's only done in America.
Yep.
And I find that weird, but the marketing stunts that they pull are just phenomenal. Like you've got the NBA's in Africa, the NBA's in China. Like Kobe's bigger in China, and LeBron is bigger in China than like most of the world. They go crazy for them out there.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It was like, and again, in England we have our own sports. We had cricket and we have football to a high level, and it's not marketed the same way. In let's say Wayne Rooney was marketed well, but he wasn't marketed in like people. If they went down the street of Boston, they wouldn't know who Wayne Rooney is. They'll be like, he's like a normal Irish dude. That's what they'll say.
Yep.
Right? But if Kobe walked in East London right now, I'd be like, whoa, that's Kobe Bryant. It was just the way it was done. And again, I watched a lot of Kobe. We knew about the Mamba mentality. And that song kind of changed it. Yeah, the song just changed everything for me. And I started watching a lot of basketball from that kind of era. And then my first NFL game was probably in 2007 when the Giants came down to Wembley for the first time against the Dolphins.
Okay. And it was that kind of not outreach program, but where they started expanding the season to one game in England. Yeah,
and that's probably an amazing thing again to do from America because they got so many fans from that. Like again, I don't think I would have gone to America to watch NFL. if it wasn't for them coming here. And I was like, wow, what's this? And I wasn't a big fan of rugby. Any rugby fans, like, please don't hate on me, but I wasn't a big fan of rugby. But then I saw NFL, and I was like, it's chess, and you can throw forward. Oh wow! Then I realized, like, there's actually this thing to this game where it's very, like, you know, tactical. You know, forget the physicality of the game, but it's also like it's a very chess game. You know, the quarterback deals with everything, and that's when I really fell in love with American sports. Like, and
when
again,
you slow down the NFL game and you watch it in slow motion, you have to understand the reads that the quarterback has to make. Like, I don't watch it to an extent where I understand all the reads. When I'm playing Madden, I just go, you know, Hail Mary every time, and it somehow works. But the reads that they make and the mental strength, the mental intellect they have to play the game. You're not just they've got an American word for it. You're not just a jock. That's not it. Like, the game is so complicated.
100%.
The way you move your body, like, you think about running backs and how they maneuver themselves through the players and up the field, and then obviously you get to the ladder and you just climb the ladder. Yeah. And you got to think about, like, it's all about slants and this and that. And you're like, whoa, this game is so much more complicated when you dive into the details.
I knew when it was complicated. I used to listen to a podcast called Sims and Lefko. So it's Phil Sims' son. His name is Chris Sim. Okay. And he was a, like, analyst at NFL. I love when I get into it, I really get into it. And I still, like, keep on track of him. He's, like, at CBS, and I kind of saw the growth, and I always feel kind of proud of that. Like, even one of my favorite comedians called Andrew Schultz, like, he's so big now, but I've been watching him since like 2014. I've been listening to his podcast since 2014. In 2016,
what's the podcast called?
It's called Brilliant Idiots and Flagrant 2.
Okay.
Like Joe Rogan.
So Flagrant 2 is what this set's based off.
Really?
That's what I'm trying to get to. Yeah, my friend sent me. I had no idea who this guy was, and I was trying to find it for my mum yesterday. Yeah. He showed me the set, and I was like, "This is brilliant." They had they had Usman on after he won his fight against Masvidal, and they had Usman in the middle, and they had the two of them on the side, and I was like, "This is perfect. I need to do this here." And so I had to maneuver the room around, and I was like, "Yeah, okay, you know, we'll make it work. We'll just iterate over time."
Yeah, and again, that's like him. Again, that's me kind of going off tangent right now, but I've been watching him since 2014. And then seeing his growth, and he used to always talk about, like, oh, I don't need Netflix, I don't need this, like, I think I'm going to do it this way. And he's always innovative, like, in that sense, and it's always inspired me as well. But we'll talk about that later down the line. But I think with like with Kobe, that's where it started off for me. It was literally just watching him play, and then when I reflected back on it in 2019, I was like, damn, I wish I could have gone to a Lakers game, you know, and seeing, like, let's say just and I did go to a Lakers game, but not in LA. We went to Chicago to watch LeBron play. And again, he dropped a triple double right in front of my eyes, and I predicted that at 5:30 in the morning. I was like, and I said to my mate, I was like, he's gonna drop a triple double. It's gonna be a good day. And he did. He dropped. And it was the most casual triple double I've ever seen in my life. I don't think he got, like, a point within the first 10 minutes, but it was just distribute, and that was really.
He's passed first, right?
Yeah,
he's passed first.
Yeah,
and you know, from when you actually look at that in life. LeBron is by far, we could talk about who's your GOAT. Because for me, there's not one single GOAT. It's GOATs of different generations. Your GOAT is different to my GOAT. I didn't watch up growing Mike, so Kobe's my GOAT. Right? LeBron will surpass that over time because of what the accolades that he'll reach. But when you look at what he does in person and he does on the floor, and he has always been a passer, and even he'll say he's pass first. He's done that in life with his friends. Yep. Like, you've got Mav Carter with his business. Yep. You've got Rich Paul with his agency, and he manages, like, it's all LeBron as well. But he's helped his friends build up standard, raise the standard, and I feel that there's not enough people doing that. Like, in general in life, it's like, you know, it's got to be me. No, you can pass first, bring everyone up to the table with you, and that's why, as a human, I like LeBron.
And again, it's a bold move, right? When you think about what he did, like, you know, I think I was reading, I've got his book as well, right? It's not actually, like, authored by him or anything like that, but it's Brian Windhurst, who used to, it's ESPN reporter, who's basically, like, Cleveland's main guy. And I remember reading up on it, and again, how the story, he had an agent, he had everything going on, but he still got Mav involved. He was like, you know, I know you're fresh out this, but you can still do it. And even Rich, they met in, like, that story is incredible, by the way. Like, they met at an airport. Rich he had a Warren Moon throwback jersey, and LeBron's like, where did you get this from? They struck up a conversation, and that conversation led, you know, him to become, like, LeBron's agent basically in the future. That to me is, like, is truly remarkable. I listen to, like, I know you're a big fan of, I guess, All the Smoke podcast.
Massive fan,
Steve
massive
Jackson,
fan.
and they always talk about it as well. They're like, I wish I brought my friends into the business, but again, it takes a special people as well. Like Mav is super smart. Like Rich is also, like, they're not just also given a lot. I think a lot of times I listen to their interviews quite often because I'm also inspired by them quite a lot. And I'm like, they're not. They also make a lot of their own decisions. It's not just like LeBron. I'm LeBron's agent, or I'm LeBron's kind of guy, and that's it. Like it's very much like, no, we'll do it this way. Like the decision was, I believe, Mav's kind of decision. The whole like we're gonna show this on ESPN in 2011. We're going to the Heat. That was Mav's decision, but he was like, I
didn't know that.
Yeah, it was Mav's decision to kind of do it that way. He was like, we need to do it in a marketing way, and it will generate a lot of this.
So he was doing Uninterrupted before he'd even started the platform.
Exactly. Yes.
That's incredible. Because one of the things about Mav that stands out for me, I think it's the first YouTube video on the Uninterrupted YouTube channel or the platform, and they interview him, or maybe it's the second or third, and he talks about, well, maybe he's talking to Magic Johnson, and basically he talks about at games when he used to show up, his mates and everyone there would take the mick out of him as like, why are you wearing a suit? Like, why are you wearing smart clothes? Why are you not wearing trackies and a hoodie? He's like, I need these people to differentiate me from LeBron.
Yep.
I am not LeBron's groupie. I am my own person. I'm Maverick Carter. Right? That I need to earn their respect, not think that I've been given their respect. And that sticks with me because I try and use that in life. I just have to earn someone's respect first. I might get a grace period. Like, sure, I give you the respect. I respect you, absolutely. But then on top of that, if things go wrong, well, then you got to earn it back.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's what I love about Mav is that, despite being literally probably next to one of the wealthiest individuals in the world, one of the greatest sports athletes in the world, he is so damn humble when it comes, whether it's an act or not, he comes across as such a humble individual. And what he's doing for sport in general, the Uninterrupted platform, has inspired me to do this for empowering the ordinary person.
Yeah, funny enough you say that as well, because that inspired me to start my own business up. Like it inspired me.
Really?
Yeah. Like in the midst of me trying to like go solo, I was like, I just kept listening to. There's two interviews and there's two podcasts. Paul Rivera podcast. I'm not sure if you've ever watched it.
I haven't come across that. I'm going to listen to that after this.
And he used to work for Nike. So he used to like design, and again, they're all mates and stuff. And Rich Paul did like an hour and a half interview. He doesn't ever do like podcasts, right? So
he doesn't do.
I watched it probably 20 times now.
Okay.
I remember even messaging him saying, "Hey, dude, like your podcast with Paul Rivera inspired me." He goes, "Let's go." He literally messaged me about a minute later. He goes, "Let's fucking go." That's it. That's what he said.
Well, Rich Paul messaged you back?
Yeah. Like I remember just messaging one day. I said, "Dude, you've inspired me to start my own business up." He goes, "Let's fucking go." That's it. And I was like, damn, I couldn't believe it. I was like, Rich Paul just messaged me back. And that's one of my like inspirations in business altogether. But the reason why it inspired me was like, look, you come from, anyone can do it. And that was their real stories. Like anyone can do it, but as long as you put in the work, you can do whatever you want. And I think they taught me a lot of like, yeah, just because they're LeBron's guys, this is fine. But Rich has created, big contracts for everyone else around him. J.R. Smith, Tristan Thompson, John Wall, all of these
Bill, Ben Simmons, a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of these guys, like he's actually, and again, his values are amazing. Like, listen to his podcast, he's talking about like, I go to people's houses and my clients' houses and I look at, are they clean or not? What's happening? Is the cushion this way? Is the cushion that way? And I was like, the detail is amazing here. And then listen to Mav as well, talking about his journey and how they all came from humble beginnings. And to me, I resonate with that. I resonate with that with the guys. And I was like, it's hard to not get inspired by this. And I kept listening to it on a loop over and over and over again. Anytime I was in the car, boom, I would be in a trance. Like when I listen to podcasts, like I'm in a trance in the car. Like I'm still like conscious of what's going on. But
you're going on, what's going on around you, but you're so involved with the conversation.
Exactly.
You feel like you're there sitting at the table.
Yeah, like we went to, as a family, went to Kent last weekend and I was driving. And I had a podcast on, Johnny Wilkinson's podcast, and he was talking about like life and being in the moment. And here I am, like in a trance. And there was one point I was like, look, concentrate on the car. And I was like, I'm fine. It's all good. So like, there was nothing going on. I was just like, why is everyone kind of, and I had it a bit louder and and everyone's like, what's going on here? And I was just like, this is how I typically, like, if I'm alone, this is how I'm typically listening to the podcast, soaking enough information. But I listened to about 6-7 times, and that really inspired me to be like, look, this can be fine. I can go solo. It's fine.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that. What did you do pre-going solo, pre-starting? And correct me if I'm wrong, it's kmakfitness, right?
Yep. Yeah. So
where did that even begin?
Yeah, so my fitness journey like started very, very, very early. When I say early, right, it's subconsciously started. So at 7 years old, my dad died from lung cancer, and that's kind of when I realized like, wow, health is something that we can't really take for granted. I think a lot of people, all of us do take it for granted, in my opinion. Like I think, and I was saying to someone else, like imagine if our body broke down, like our car breaks down, if we put wrong fuel in there. How many of us would really like pay attention to what we do, right? The world would be completely different, in my opinion. However, our body breaks down 60 plus, right? You know, you start getting arthritis, or you start getting heart problems, cholesterol, diabetes. And that's when I was like, okay, you know what? And again, it was in the back of my mind. I didn't, you know, when you're 7 years old, you're not going to go, I'm now doing this. But I was new. I would be in the health industry regardless. Like I was very, very bullish at a young age. Again, coming from an Asian background as well, it's not easy to be like, look, I'm going to be here and this is what's going to happen. But we can talk about obviously the social stigma side of things with like jobs and so on. And then we moved to this country around like 8-9 years old. And when we moved to this country, it's not like I was a lot more open to loads of different things. Like, you know, when you're in Africa, it's only education. Like sport wasn't a big thing. You come to this country, Premier League footballers around, right? And I was, you know, you're inspired by that showtime effectively. Like 4 p.m. Super Sunday is on, and you're like, wow, this is like an amazing event here. And, you know, I remember my uncles were like, oh yeah, these guys get paid millions. And I was like, so why is no one else doing this? Like, what's happening to the Asians? Why are we not doing this? Because we love money, right? We always like, oh, you'll be an accountant, be a doctor, this, but you get paid a lot. And I'm like, so why don't we go a step further and become an athlete? That like was truly fascinating.
Because that's like stratosphere in terms of, if you think about pay grades in the UK, you've got your middle class, you've got your upper middle class. Now you're talking about your doctors, investment bankers, people owning their own businesses, irrespective of what it is.
Yep.
And then there's sport, and that's just this upper echelon of, you know, what you want to call it, rich. It's being wealthy, like rich from wealth. And yeah, I've never looked at it from that point of view.
And that's the thing, it always fascinated me. I was like, okay, so we love being this, being that, but it's like, why don't none of us want to be athletes? And that was a time, an era where it was like maybe 2006 onwards, where like Amir Khan, the boxer, was around the scene. Monty Panesar in cricket. You know, there was Michael Chopra, the footballer. And again, the name you can know whether Asian or not, right? If you hear Chopra, you're like, oh, he's Asian. And that inspired me to a large extent, but I always wanted to be an athlete. But I never had that athlete's body, right? Because when I was like 13, 14, didn't really pay attention to nutrition. As a kid, you just eat whatever your mom makes and you're like, yeah, I'm just going to eat this and cool. I'm going to, whatever it is, what it is. And I was quite athletic as a kid anyway. Like I was in cricket teams. We played football. I remember even middle school, like I was always in there. Like I was a school captain. And then what happened was, as the years progressed, like my body just got progressively worse because you're not paying attention to nutrition as much.
Right.
So at the age of like 16, I was like, I need to do something about this. So this is when I was like I say I did something about this. I didn't do too much about it. Apart from, I realized, okay, I'm going to be doing sports only as my career. Like, that's when I made a conscious decision. I'm like, look, there's no other thing that I really enjoy in my life. I saw a lot of people complaining about working in the city a lot. I saw people who didn't like their jobs a lot. So why would I want to do the same thing? So that's when I decided, okay, look, cool, this is the career path I want to go to. But I didn't know what exactly it would be.
That's quite aware for a kid, not a kid, but for a young man. That is quite aware for that age.
I mean, I was a kid. Don't get me wrong, I was a kid. Like,
to look around and be like, I see this person talking about how much they hate their job. I mean, off camera, we were talking about how our weeks went. I was like, my 9 to 5 sucks.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different conversation. And then you're looking at the city, and that, you know, the commute is horrible. And like every single day, the commute, it takes a lot out of you. So for you to mentally be like, you know what, I'm going to stick with what makes me happy. That takes a lot of balls. But
also, I wasn't that academic, so I didn't have choices. Right. So, like, I think sometimes when you're academic, you end up having loads of choices, and then it becomes paralysis by analysis, and then you never go anywhere because of like, I could be this, I could do this, I could do this. So I was always like, that's the issue as well, right? Like you end up you're becoming jack of all trades, master of none, effectively. So I was never like that academic. I was a C student, to be honest, like C's, D's, like, you know, and it would never impact me too much. It was weird because everyone else around me would be like, if they got like a B minus or something like that, everyone would be like, whoa, I got B minus. I'm about to cry. Whereas I kind of just got on with it. It was weird.
Right.
But I was, like I said, I was never academic. So it forced me to kind of really like look into what I really like and enjoy and what I'm good at. So I guess that's where probably my awareness came through. And then when I went to university is when my journey to the gym started. And, you know, I think I mentioned it previously too. I said, look, the fitness is very spiritual to me, but it wasn't spiritual in the very beginning. It was just me going to the gym, literally. But it was, and I've done a post about like thanking dumbbells, because without dumbbells, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Put it that way.
Really?
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be talking here with, like, I don't know what I'd be doing, truth be told, in my life.
Why dumbbells? Why not the barbell? Why not kettlebells? Why dumbbells?
It's just one of those things where like dumbbells was the first thing I picked up when I was there in the gym. And again,
do you remember what weight you picked up? Do you remember what dumbbell it was?
Yeah, it was a 12 kilo, and my first exercise was like a flat dumbbell chest press. Yeah, it was a flat dumbbell chest press. Because everyone just did bench.
Mine was a bench press. And I went with my friend, my university housemate. He was like, "We're gonna get you in the gym," and it was a bench press.
Yeah.
And I think I couldn't lift anything but the bar at the time. And so it was the 20 kg bar, and I was like, okay, so this is going to be a long slog.
And that's the beauty of it as well, right? Like it was just there's two types of people as well. That will either quit because they're like, this is too hard for me, or you just like, you embrace the challenge. And I'm a very competitive guy, right, in general, because of sports, my background in sports. I was like, I need something competitive in my life now that is going to be here for life. And that the gym was basically it. And then obviously it kind of started with me going into the gym, you know, progressively, and again, constantly as well. And this is when I was at uni. So I was in complete control of everything around me, my nutrition, my sleep habits, everything. And that's when I remember I think I dropped about 5 kilos in the first year in the lead up towards Christmas. And then people around me looked at me like, whoa, you've dropped a lot of weight. And that became like, okay, this is interesting. And then again, the next year, which was like April, you know, you have the Easter break, you have the big Easter break. And everyone was like, whoa, you've dropped again more weight. What's going on? And stuff like that. And then people around me started asking me, like I had, funny enough, my friend right now, who is part of our coaching team, he came to me and said to me, hey man, I need help to lose body weight. Like I've got this big belly. I don't know what to do. Help me out. And our friendship started from there. And obviously now we work together, but it started from there, where he came up to me. And again, I prescribed him something that I wouldn't even do now with clients, which is like a paleo diet. I said, let's try this out. And I think, you know, you'd be very, very good with this. But he got phenomenal results in that moment. And he was in cloud 9. And I was like, wow, this is interesting. And I'm a type of guy who thinks probably like 1 or 2 steps ahead. So even third year came about, and I was like, okay, dissertation handed in. I was like, okay, I think I'm done. Sports psychology was my undergrad. And I was like, okay, this is good. But I want to get into coaching. I don't want to get into like coaching athletes first. Again, my whole dream was always coaching. I wanted to probably be the next Tim Grover, for example, who coached MJ. But
yeah,
I was like, you know what? I coached like these regular people. Like it would be fun to just change regular people's lives. And I could see the impact I made on my friend in that moment. And I was like, wow, this is quite powerful. And I could see obviously what happened with me. And that's when it became a very spiritual thing, because I'm like, I only wanted to go into the gym to get abs like Floyd Mayweather, right? And I always say this to everyone, like, I only wanted to have abs like Floyd Mayweather, but now it's like, I want a bigger chest, I want bigger arms, I want bigger traps, bigger shoulders. It's like, it's a constant striving for improvement to be, you know, get to the next level. And then one of those key situations was, okay, I'm here now. I'm in this kind of realm of like, I'm changing people's lives. And then I basically left university and said, okay, cool, I'm here. I want to get qualification done. So I paid for a qualification, literally within 2 months, literally a month before graduation, actually. So straight away, I was like, I want to be a personal trainer, right? And then what happened was, I think a year later, finished off my qualifications, and in end of 2017, I qualified. And at that moment, I found another Indian dude called Akash. And he was basically like, he was ahead of the game already, like in terms of he was already getting Indian transformations. I was like, I want to be where he is. And then he was my coach then as well at the same time. I kind of hired him as my coach. to help me out. And then from there, I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. He put out a post out on Instagram saying, I'm looking for the next coach or whatever. And I said, look, I don't have the experience, but I think I'll be a great junior trainer for you guys. I've got one result. What do you guys think? He goes, okay, not bad. And then he messaged me one day on Instagram and goes, okay, so what was your degree at? What was this? What was that? And I was like, did this, did that. And he goes, 2 days later, he goes, are you available to have a chat with me and Adam, who was the co-founder at that time? We had a 45-minute interview. The next day I got the role. And then that's where my introduction to the online world started.
Right.
But if I never asked him on my check-in day about the role, I don't think I would have got it either, because he was looking for experienced coaches. I was the least experienced coach in the industry. Like, I literally just stepped into the industry. So I was like, but I said, look, you can help me out here. I'm a blank canvas. You can mold me how you want to. I'm a junior trainer. Let's go for it. And that's where my love for...
What's the difference when you approach a client with regards to online training versus in the gym with them?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, a lot of people still approach me for like one-to-one training, and I had to put a post out yesterday. I'm like, look, I've retired since 2019. I don't do it basically anymore. But
you sure you're not going to make a comeback? Yeah.
I don't know, Jordan wearing the 4-5, right? But like with one-to-one training, it's like you're physically in the gym, and they know that you work here. For example, online, like if you say you're an online coach, there is no barrier to who I can coach in the world. Like, I had a call with someone in Atlanta last week who signed up. That wouldn't be possible if I only had like one geographical location, which is Harrow or whatever, right? Like, it's again, the online world, there's no barrier to entry. Your location is fine. Like, you can work out with us anywhere in the world.
Absolutely.
So that's the beauty of online, in my opinion. And so that's how I got into it. And then I spent two years there at R&T. It was some of the best times of my life in terms of like learning. And we built a team there, and I got phenomenally a lot better as time went on there. And then I left in 2020. Similar reasons. I was like, I was hearing Rich Paul talk and Mav talk, and like, I don't want to be, basically this person only, like LeBron's friend. I was in the same boat. I was like, I just don't want to be this person known as like a coach just at R&T as my legacy. I was like, I want to build something big, not bigger than that, but I want to build something for myself, which I can look back on and think, yeah, I was very, very happy about that. And for me, that was like my own version of clutch sports and my own version of uninterrupted and so on. But I needed to take that step out. And it was again, a very, very scary situation because I'm stepping out from comfort.
What were the emotions like doing that? Like, you've gone from this really secure role, someplace you're comfortable, your best times of your life, to being like, I'm at a point in my life now where we need to do this. Like, at some points, did you ever think back and be like, I made the wrong decision?
Not really, because the way the business has gone now in the last 7 months has been like amazing, and couldn't have asked for it. Like, if you asked me like 6 months ago, you'd be in this position, you'd have 2 of your friends in the business, etc. I'd have said to you, probably not. And I'd say it's a far-fetched dream, but the way it's gone, I'd say I don't regret it. But the emotions in that moment was, fear. I was quite scared. I was like, oh man, I'm leaving essentially, the comfort zone and thinking, am I going to be able to, generate the transformations I want? For me, like, you probably love this, but transformations to me, I see it as an average, like basketball, like if you're a scorer. So my average, I remember my 2019 year, I got like 38 transformations, right? I was like, that's me averaging 38 per year. That's an MVP year for me, right? Yep. And then the COVID year, which was 2020, I still got 28 transformations. Right?
That's still solid numbers.
Yeah, and I think I came into starting my own business. So I was like, am I going to be able to average the same amount of numbers? Am I still going to get 25? It's only until like a week ago, one of my clients, I posted like one of my on stories, and if I'm on a shoot, I'll post the shoot, and one of my clients was like, oh crap, K-Mac is back to 2019 days, and that kind of made me smile, because I'm like, yeah, that was my MVP year, but like, I constantly strive for that, and that's one of the scary elements, because when you start your own business, you're like, are people going to come to you? Are people wanting to come to you? But luckily, like, that was kind of dispelled within the first couple of weeks, because loads of people just started approaching me and they wanted to work with me because they knew what I was doing at my previous company. So they were like, okay, look, I think he's very trustworthy, and he just started his own one. And I rarely advertise for my services. I only advertised once, and I got 50 inquiries from that.
Is there a reason why you don't?
It becomes organic, if that makes sense. Like, I don't.
Okay.
Like, if I did it, let's say tomorrow, I think it would have the same effect where it'd be like loads of people just wanting to jump. And we may do that, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't advertise or anything like that. It's just there's a lot happens out behind the scenes that people are already like, hey, go to Kmac, go to this, and then you end up having calls already. So we just kind of lay low with that, with the whole like, you know, we're selling this and we've got 10 spots available, whatever. And people know that, like when he's really like, if he's looking for 10 people, like being there quick. Because when I did it in November, it was like, that's the first time I advertised my whole time on Instagram. And also my Instagram page didn't look like how it looks like now. My Instagram page was just results, and no one knew what I looked like either. It was just transformation. That was it. And that was, people were like, oh, is that actually Kunal? That's what he looks like. They didn't know what it looked like unless you went to the bottom of the page and you'd be like, oh, that's what he looks like. But for me, that's the only thing that I cared about in that moment. Then I realized, okay, now I'm the brand. I've got to literally put myself out there, which is also another scary element, right? Like you're not on camera, you're not on Instagram too much or whatever. Like I wasn't on Instagram too much. Or like Clubhouses is another thing that kind of popped up at the start of the year. That kind of boosted up my profile, but it was different, right? And that's how we met. That's how this conversation has started off.
Absolutely.
Is because of Clubhouse. So shout out Clubhouse. But obviously right now it's not in the best possible spot, but you know, that's the thing. Like again, getting into that realm for myself was scary, nerve-wracking, but it's also quite fulfilling, I would say. Like looking back on it now, like you have to take the step. Like if you want to go into the unknown and you want to come out of your comfort zone, like you have to go into that. Otherwise you'll never know. Like I never, because I always ask myself, will I ever regret it if I never try this on my own? I'd rather fail on my own and like just be comfortable and then think that's it. Like I couldn't care less about failure, because I've always had failure in my life and I'm okay with that. Like, because you can always, yeah.
I like that. I follow a similar thing now. Like, just fail fast. Just like if you fail, it's not a failure. It's a learning curve, and it's just changing that wiring in your head where it's like, oh shit, I got to give it all up and blah 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 and whatever. Like I've got back in the gym, and I've got the Gymshark app.
Yeah.
And it's logged all of the training sessions I used to do before I went to India and before I took up yoga, and so I'm seeing like, okay, so you can lift. You used to be able to lift 60 kgs on a bench press. You used to lift 110 on deadlift. That was your 1 rep max, right? And I can't bench the bar. I can't do 30 kgs on a deadlift. I can't lift up the 15 kg shoulder presses. And I'm like, okay, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, are we really going to stick in here for the long haul? And it's like you fail quickly. Okay, fine. So you don't get it one day, drop a weight, go again. And it's just show up. Just show up for yourself. Show up for people. Just, you will not regret it in the long term. And it's one of the most consistent things that you can do is just show up every day. Show up.
Yeah, and it's very underrated, right? When you think about it, just showing up. Like someone said it to me as well, like in their check-in last week. They're like, I think just me showing up this week was a big win, and I was like 100%. Because
facts.
You know, if you don't show up and you shy away, you're only like, you can't always turn up when you're feeling good, right? You can't always do
absolutely.
Things, and that's the thing. It's that learning from that.
But we like that attachment. As we've gotten to like that attachment. Like as humans, social media propagates that. You know, when you're feeling down, you go to social media, you get that dopamine here. When you're in the gym and you're on a high, you're like, the pre-workout's running through your veins. I love pre-workout, absolutely love it. I saw actually, you know what? The reason I got back in the gym was partly because of Uncle Pre and him posting about you. And I saw the pre-workout and I was like, yeah, I think it's time.
I love that.
But it's like, you've got to, you can't just always do things. Sometimes you need to go through the grit and grind, and you need to experience the downside and show yourself that you can get through it. Like me and my depression, I was very hesitant to go to a therapist. I was open to it, but I was very hesitant. And to be perfectly honest, I was naive, and I used to say it was a white people thing. I was like, that's it. It's just for white people. But I'm not as naive now. I think about things slightly differently. And I'm like, you know what? These are individuals that are educated in their fields. Maybe they can look at the way that they look at me and the things that I've done. Maybe they can analyze something. Maybe there's something wrong or whatever. But the podcast started like that, as a way of, I was in India, I can't go and get therapy. Let me go and freeze my thoughts down in time so that other people can look at it on the web and, you know, have kind of this decentralized therapist, basically. And I like the grit. I like it. When you come out the other end and you're like, yeah, I did that. That's pretty cool. That is really cool. That's like almost Mamba mentality. It's like you get through it.
And again, if you look at Kobe, right? Kobe also failed. Like, you can talk about that 98 three-pointers that he airballed.
Oh yeah.
Right. I always look back on that and I'm like, that's pretty much me in school. Like I kept doing the same thing. And again, like I went to an pretty much all Asian school, right? Like we're all going to be smart generally, but I was like the only one who was not getting the best grades. My mom was telling me like, what are you going to do with your life? And I was like, damn, like, I was like, all right, cool. But it's like that also learning from that pressure, you know, that for me was also quite interesting because I was like, okay, cool. I need to find other paths. So that's why, you know, talk about awareness at the start. It came from like, because I wasn't like already comfortable with the books. So I needed to go find my own way and I had to find it hard. Otherwise I didn't want to find it when I'm 40. Right.
Do you think that because of that pressure that led to that awareness, you ended up in a place where you were, like you say, it's spiritual for you?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's like because of that timeline and those dominoes that fell, that's why you look at transformation, you look at what you do as, or you look at the gym in a spiritual sense, as well as everything else that it is?
Yeah, and also
when you said that to me, I was like, whoa, this is different. I've never heard anyone talk about the gym in this sense. I've never heard anyone talk about body transformation in this sense. And I was like, I need to hear what he has to say about this.
Yeah, fitness is like, it is very, very spiritual. Like even like, for example, we had 2 shoots as a company last Sunday and then this one on Wednesday. And it's like seeing their experience in the gym when they're in the best shape of their life. It feels like they're out of body. Like they say it to me. They're like, I never thought I'd be here. That's like a spiritual kind of feeling, right? It's like when you know Muslims go to Mecca, they say, I can't believe I'm here right now. It's exactly the same thing. You're in this new body, which makes it so spiritual. Like I remember one time, one of my clients actually said this to me. He kind of said it as like a drug experience. He goes, it's like taking LSD, but it's a complete out of body experience to this. Like he goes, people wouldn't get it unless they do it. And it's the same thing with fitness as well. It's just, if people wouldn't get it when you go through like a transformation, and again, not everyone experiences the same type of journey, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Like some people will go in there because, you know, past traumas got to them there, and they're like, I got bullied because of this, and I'm going in there trying to prove it. So it may not, for them, it may be spiritual in that moment, but someone else, it may just be because it's coming from self-loathing or hate or something else around it. For me, it came through where it was like it was liberation. You know, it was that element there where I just completely loved like being in there. But
what were you liberating from? Just existence?
Yeah, like it's that moment where nothing can happen apart from it's just you and the bar and dumbbells. It's
the Rocky quote where it's you and you.
Yeah, and that's it. It's that. And again, a lot of people ask me like, the gym is very therapeutic. It's everyone there who's going in therapy. There's a reason why everyone is there. Like, yeah, it may not be because it's all for the same reasons, but majority of people, it's there because I get a lot of people ask me, people watch me in the gym. I'm like, I get that, but at the same time, everyone's there to improve. It's a self-improvement, like a development center, put it that way. And I think people don't think of it that way, but I've always seen it as that way where people, even if they're looking at you, whatever, it's like, you know, whatever the reason they look at you is fine, but they're there to really just also work on themselves.
There's something about, there's 2 types of times. Like there's the 4:30, 4 o'clock a.m. club, 5 a.m. club, and you've got the kind of like the 11 p.m. club. And I've done both. I prefer the 4 a.m., 5 a.m. when I can get, when I'm in the mode and, you know, I'm hitting my bedtimes. But those 2 people, those 2 types of people that go at those times, they are not there just to work out. They are there, I feel, when I've been at those times, there's a different drive in them completely. They think about life in a completely different way. The way they approach the barbells, the dumbbells and whatever, it's like they treat it with so much respect. And you're like, it's just like, at the end of the day, it's a gym, right? Everyone, it's a public place that we all pay for and but you go during the middle of the day and it's a completely different, like there's barbells everywhere, there's dumbbells everywhere. And you're like, there's something about those people that is so wired differently. If you can get up at that time, or you can go in the evening after such a long day, and you have the mental strength to put your body through all of that, knowing that at the end of the day, it's going to hurt if you don't do the right things, if you don't stretch, if you don't do this, if you don't do that, if you don't eat properly. Get up the next day and go again.
Yeah.
That is wild. And that's not to say that if you go during the middle of the day, like consistently, but it's like on top of that, you're getting up early, you're getting up before the day starts, you're going at the end of the day after such a long day of your whatever job that you do. There's an extra mental gear that they've got. And I'm like, when I only could do it for a month. My body couldn't take it after that. And I used to watch these people. I used to be like, I felt like I was part of something different.
I think they're also deloading their thoughts with the barbell. That's what it is, right? It's a very it's the calmest time in it's the calmest time. It's dead times, as you mentioned. So there's not much going on apart from no one's really disturbing you. It's probably 20% less capacity potentially, and what that does. And I've got loads of clients who do that. They go to the gym at that specific time because they're like, it's just me versus me, but it's me and my thoughts, and no one else can distract me. Whereas, like you mentioned, going midday can be very distracting regardless, because barbers around there, people are music is louder than usual. So it's that element where that's where people don't always find it very spiritual. Whereas you go in the morning or you go really late in the evening, it makes perfect sense in terms of what you're trying to do there. And those people kind of get it. They really, really, really end up getting what the spirituality is of fitness. To me, it's very much exactly in the same realm as how people find yoga or ayahuasca or all of these, going to these events. It's exactly the same, because it doesn't stop. Because fitness really doesn't stop. It's something
it's one of those things that never does. It's there when you're born, and it's there when you die. Exactly,
it's always going to be there. And again, people choose it whether they want it or not in their lives. There's going to be some people who go their whole life without ever lifting a weight, and there's some people who are going to go lift weight until they're 80 years old, and they'll do it for about 40, 50 years. And that could be possibly me, for example. I'll be probably doing this for now another 50 years, which sounds crazy thinking about it right now, but it's I'm going to be okay with that because I chose it from a very young age.
Do you ever think about collectively how much weight you would have lifted over your lifetime?
And you know what? Until you just mention it right now, I don't think, no, but that's something I may need to start to keep a track of. Just keep a spreadsheet on the side, right? Okay, did that today, or did that today. But I have a feeling I look back on my old logbooks. I reckon I probably will.
Like a diary.
And I may pass it down to the future generations around me. So again, the logbook doesn't mean anything apart from my numbers and maybe my body weight on that day or whatever. And it'll be good just to kind of I used to do this exercise back in the day, because you never know what pops up in the next 20 years. It could be something different. Biomechanics is so far ahead right now that people are moving away from the traditional bench, squat, deadlift. There's always loads of different things. There's different equipment. So it'll be interesting to see in 20, 25 years time, 30 years time, what am I doing new, differently, and then compare it to my old.
Do you stay in a quite an old school way of doing stuff? Do you stay with the iron, or are you quite open to? And I'm talking about your fitness, not the way you teach your clients, because every client's different. But you yourself, are you quite open to experiencing new things and testing your body and testing its limits, or do you stick to the old school compound exercises, barbell, bench press, deadlift, squats?
I'm very of one of the new school, purely because science is around, and again, research is easy to kind of digest compared to before. Obviously before, the internet wasn't as it wasn't there too much. You couldn't go on Google and say, okay, is squat, bench, deadlift the best exercises for me? For me, it's I can't bench well. My chest has never grown from a bench press, but people out there will always be go and bench, go and bench, go and bench. But biomechanically, you may not be able to bench properly, right? I use my shoulders way more when I'm trying to bench. I'm rounding them up constantly. Therefore, my chest has never grown. So I've had to change it biomechanically, and we've had to go, me and my coach, we've had to go different routes quite often. So I think it's a case of I have to be of the new school, because I also have clients who have exactly the same position as me, who can't grow for a certain reason. If you're, for example, not everyone can squat. Majority of the population can't squat. But everyone does it because it's key compound lift. But it's my job to teach someone, no, you don't need to do that, and we can still grow. And if I can help someone do that, then it's phenomenal. And we can be in a very big, I'm putting out a transformation next week about a guy who came skinny fat and built muscle mass during lockdown.
Is this one of your that was on the shoots?
No,
someone completely different.
It's his cousin.
Okay.
It's his cousin, and they both kind of signed up. Well, he signed up earlier, 2 months earlier than the one I did the shoot with, and it was fascinating to see his before and after pictures. And I was on a call yesterday, and I showed it to someone, and he goes, "Whoa!" And I said, "Yeah, he did it with basically 10 kilo dumbbells." but exercise execution was very, very key. And on top of that, it was a whole case of, you know, me giving video feedback and telling him how it can be done. And his chest grew. He came to me like he had no chest, but his chest really grew, but didn't do anything like bench press or anything like that. So it's also working with individual mechanics and biomechanics, which is like, if I'm on top of that, then I can be on top of that for my clients as well. Otherwise, I would always be stuck, and then my clients wouldn't grow, or they wouldn't move anywhere, and it would just be very, very difficult to say, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? I wouldn't be able to question it properly if I was very, very biased to it myself.
I see. Like I've gone through a couple of things. Like I started off in the gym. No, I didn't start off in the gym actually. I started off running. Like in school, it was cross country running, right? And so I went to a boarding school, and they used to have two circuits. They used to be the small junior one. They used to be the bigger one. Never could run properly, but I could average like in the class of 30, I could do a top 5, top 10, which was all right, not bad. I think it was like a mile. Yeah, I think it was 1.5 miles, and that wasn't bad. It'd take a chunk out of you, like middle of the day, but it was enjoyable. My gym experience started when I went to university, and one of my mates on the course was doing it. Shout out Rit. He's gonna love it. And he was like, "Look, I go. Why don't you come with me? And we'll put you through it." And I did it in I just dirty bulked. Like to be point simply, it was just dirty bulking. I just ate everything in existence. I had the super mass whey protein, or I think it was the my protein stuff. Oh, I used to throw up when I was drinking it. It was horrible, horrible stuff. And I remember, like, at the end of the day, I'd be so full, I'd wanted to throw up everything, and then it'd digest overnight. And like it was chicken and rice. That was it every single day. And in my second year, it was very similar. I think I eased off the bulking powder because it was just too heavy, and started to increase the calories to 3.5 and whatever. So it was like 2 shakes a day on top of eating that chicken and rice, and then it just loads of chicken and rice, and yeah, I think that was pretty much my diet. I used to get some meat in there as well, some other meat in there as well, and I always found it difficult to ever like go back to being vegetarian because I never understood how you could bulk, you could maintain a level of fitness without meat. I didn't get it. Completely didn't get it. But I went to India and I saw like, and we can talk about this because I know it's something that you mentioned earlier, but there was brown people in there that looked like they bodybuilded. And I was like, I've never seen this before in my life. Mm-hmm. This is the weirdest thing. I saw, it was a Sikh guy, Sardar. And this dude, I've never seen someone pick up so many weights. Like literally, like he literally had everything in the gym on this bar. And I was like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
And I ended up going in a different direction because it didn't fit my lifestyle of going to the gym. We were traveling quite a lot. And so I didn't want to get into a point where I was just completely shattered and I couldn't walk anywhere. And so I ended up doing yoga, and you know that threw me off for like the first week, but then you get into a groove of things and it becomes phenomenal. And so I've been doing yoga for like a year now, year and a half, and I'm struggling to do it at the moment. I've just not fallen out of love, but it's a weird process, and I'm trying to weave it back in because I want to be able to do both. I miss there's something about lifting iron that I enjoy.
Yeah.
And but I also enjoy the yoga and the stretching aspect of it, of you and no iron. And it's just you and your body, and not having to look in a mirror, but just mentally focusing on these different joints and focusing on these different muscle groups to try and, you know, it's that mind-body connection that they talk about. But my journey's taken different routes, and I'm at this moment now where I'm like, I just need to get it into a good place where I consistently show up. And in yoga, it's funny that we talk about it. There is I was going to become a yoga teacher. So I was actually venturing down the same path as you. So before the pandemic hit, I was actually booked on a yoga course. I started, and I wasn't even supposed to be doing any of this. I was going to be a yoga teacher. I was going to be like, there's that famous one in America that got done for women.
Chowdhury.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Not him, not like him, but that kind of business model.
Yeah.
And so, and one of the things in in kind of when you start yoga, there's a whole bunch of learning you have to do around it, because you've got to understand the history, and you also have to understand like what yoga means. And I was like, why? but it makes a whole lot more sense. And one of the things is that you just got to show up on the mat every day. You got to show yourself that you can get on it. Could be 2 seconds, could be 2 hours, but you show up, you put yourself down there. And like getting back into the gym now, it's been this long process of, okay, let's build up, let's get the body right. But let me jump back to off camera. We had a chat about there was never any Asian people that you could look at and be like, I want to be like him. Like you talk about bodybuilding, and it's that C-bum guy, Chris Bumstead, yeah. Chris Bumstead. I watched the Gymshark stuff. Phenomenal. These Gymshark athletes are just insane. Like Devon, is it Devon Lesk? I don't think I can pronounce his.
I've got his name now, last name.
There's Obi Vincent in the UK. There's a couple other ones. The females that are doing the home workouts, but I never see any brown people.
Yeah.
What was it like not an idol, but not having someone that you could aspire to in that manner, or more that you could aspire to in that manner? More than just one person, because obviously you talked about your friend that you joined the business with, and obviously he was in it as well. So what's that like? Like, how did you get over that?
Funny enough, I never thought about it in that moment because I kind of accepted it. And the reason I say accepted it, because I accepted it when I was probably in high school, early days, like year 8, year 9, because I only saw like the athletes who just about made it in the pinnacle. So that was like, you know, the Amir Khans of the world, the Monty Pythons of the world. So I was like, these are like 1 in like 1,000 plus, right? The odds are completely against me in terms of becoming an athlete. However, I was like, even in sport, right? Like I'm thinking, oh wait, like a physiotherapist, barely any. I didn't know any physiotherapists, personal trainers. I didn't know many. So for me, I was like, why don't I be the first? Or why don't I like go this route where I can then essentially become the first that will then inspire the next generation? Because then, you know, someone has to do it. And I was like, I don't mind being one of them. And I was fine with it. And again, even when I was in classes, I was the only Asian ones. Like my university class, doing a sports psychology degree, sports science class, there may be a handful of Asians, maybe 3, 4 in a class. And the rest of it, 35, 40 would be black and Asian, not black and white. That's it. Like it was only, so I was already in that minority kind of from a young age. Like I was the only one who's kind of being in there. Like if I did my FA, like refereeing course, I was the only Asian guy in there, for example. And I was okay with that. But like with the gym, I didn't look, I wasn't like, oh yeah, I need to find an Asian inspiration now. Initially I did, but I was like, there isn't too many. And then the YouTube game, it was like, okay, who can I really relate to? Like, who do I really like? Rob Lipsett popped up and Christian Guzman popped up.
Okay, I've never heard of these guys.
Christian Guzman, I'd say he's one of the best in terms of like, as an inspiring dude. He's like 27 years old. He's built an amazing company and an amazing clothing brand as well at the same time within the fitness space. And he's come a very, very, very long way. And that's what inspired us when we were like in unis and you know, growing up. But I didn't think of like the way you just said it there, but like, who did you look out for as an Asian? I didn't, because I kind of gave up, if that makes sense. And it sounds quite
I get that because we watch sport, right? So you end up looking at like an NFL player's body, or you end up looking at like a football player's body or a basketball player's body. You're like, I want that, but it's a weird topic because like there just aren't any real brown people in there. Exactly. There's not many brown people in the league, or any leagues for that matter. I mean, you look at cricket; it's a whole different ball game. I don't know how that doesn't translate over to baseball, but.
I mean, there's a movie on that, right? Like, I think I forgot the movie's name now, but I remember it was John Hamm, Mr. Mad Men. Have you watched Mad Men?
Yes, I do. I do remember. It's the guy. It's something about the ball, right? It's the golden arm or the golden.
Yeah.
Something basically. Like that.
And that's an amazing story because he's like, and I respect that kind of storyline because it's like they're going to India because they're like, these guys can play cricket. Like, how can this now translate to baseball? And I actually do believe they're trying to do that even to this day. And who knows, in maybe 30 years time, we may see something like loads of the way Dominicans are in America with baseball. We may see that with Indians who can't, let's say, make into cricket, go into baseball instead. So that's something that like, as I was growing up, it was like, cool, let me just be my own kind of, not inspiration, but like, just let me do my own way. And also I grew up, like my inspirations were like Kobe Bryant of the world. And I didn't care about if they're Asian or not. Like Kobe's universal to anyone. LeBron is universal to anyone. MJ to this day is still universal to anyone. So that's the way I kind of saw it. Even with like fitness, the two of the guys, one was a Latin dude, Christian Guzman, one was a white guy, Irish dude. So even though we're completely different, we have like similar storylines, which is like we all wanted to cultivate change because we didn't like the way we looked.
Oh, that's beautiful. That is beautiful. That is that's like that's the premise of this episode just summed up in one.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like we all wanted to, and again, it didn't matter of race. And at that point, I couldn't like care less about. And that's when, but then I saw obviously Akash then as a bodybuilder, and as an Indian, and I was like, okay, this is rare. I don't see this too often. That's when it kind of drew me to him, and it drew me to R&T, and that's when I kind of got involved with R&T eventually. But before that, you're right, there wasn't many, and again, even to this day, I don't know too many.
Right.
The world is changing now. I do believe like I've got my nephews or my cousin actually. He goes to me, "What do you think of sport as like a degree?" And I said, "What?" Because again, I'm the only one who's done it in my family. Like I was the original black sheep, effectively. Like I was the only one who's like, I'm going to do this. Everyone's like, nah, you can't do this. It's not going to pay. It's not going to do this. And like, I was very bullish in that. I was very like stubborn in terms of what I wanted. And then until my cousin called me, like, and we spoke. And he's in Kenya, and again, it's a bit different in Kenya. But he was like, yeah, I'm thinking of doing sports science as my degree, and it just gave me confidence. I was like, yeah,
Kenya's a breeding ground for that. I mean, like, you think about the runners that come out of Kenya, the marathon runners. It's phenomenal. I'd love to go and do a marathon at some point in Kenya, in Rift Valley, and just experience that, because there's literally, it's just flat and then there's hill.
Yeah. Yep.
Like Rift Valley is a whole different beast of a landscape. But if you can tap into that from a business standpoint, if you can tap into that and tapping into that ecosystem of athletes, because they've been running from lions, they're dealing with animals as their heritage, and that's got to go through the evolution of them, right? Exactly. When you're on that continent, if you can do that and harness that and impact change, like you said, in those communities, like Kenya's got one of the biggest slums in the world. I guarantee you there are athletes in those slums that just don't know they're athletes.
110%. Every single day they're running and they're getting PBs without even knowing they're getting PBs.
Absolutely.
Like that's the beauty of like, I always think of it. There's always an athlete somewhere in the world right now, like who has never tested themselves. Like these NBA, Joel Embiid. Like, have you heard his story of like before he got drafted, he only started like playing basketball 3 years before he started like.
Let's take that a step further. Have you heard Francis Ngannou's story?
I've heard bits and pieces. I know he just started not lifting. He started like wrestling, and then he got into that, and then suddenly
the dude used to work in I think it was a diamond mine or a gold mine in Cameroon, and somehow he made it to Paris, and the dude was just so big that they got him in a gym, and like he learned MMA in like a couple years. Are you talking about? And we are talking about the most dangerous sport. And this dude, like, congratulations to him on winning his fight against Stipe, but phenomenal. Like, where you come from, and people like that are built different. There's a drive there that doesn't exist in certain individuals, and whether it's feeling pain or whether it's the background or whether it's something else. Like Joel Embiid as well, learned to play basketball in just like a couple years, and he's one of the most dominant bigs of our current generation.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like he went from like not knowing a sport to knowing a sport, getting drafted and become a millionaire.
Yep.
That's so rare, but when you think about it, in the world, like that opportunity is so rare. Imagine if I told you, Viraj, if you pick up a sport that you don't know about right now, and then in 4 years' time you'd be one of like the best in there. Like that's how it is basically. And like I said, there's untapped potential, and I 100% agree with that. And in Kenya especially, but it's funny you mentioned about Kenya and obviously Africa in general. There's a lot of Asians in Kenya as well.
There's a massive Asian community.
Yeah, like I'm born in Kenya, but we also didn't play sports to a large extent in Kenya.
Really?
Yeah. Like
my parents were born there. I wasn't born there. My mum was from Nairobi. My dad was born in Mombasa. But we've got my godparents are back there, and I've been to stay with them. And their kids have like religious schedules for working out. Like they've got a gym out there, and they've got personal trainers. And it's like 5 a.m. they're in the gym, like they got class. And it's just like 5 a.m., 6 a.m., 7 a.m. school. Come back, 5 a.m. It's like 5, 6, 7 p.m. Workouts. And it's great seeing that from like such a young age. I think they're 18, 14, and I think 10.
Wow.
And it's great seeing that. Because I wasn't like that. I just used to be like, okay, so I have to go and do PE now. Great. I always used to enjoy basketball because I was good at it, but everything else was just like, forget this.
Yeah. That's amazing. And the reason I say it's amazing because when I was like, again, I'm looking at all my cousins and all that kind of stuff, none of us really played sport like that. It's only when I came to this country and I was like, well, why don't we ever play sport? Why don't we want to be athletes? That question is still to the top of my, like I always think about it occasionally. I'm like, why don't Asians want to be athletes? It's like one of those.
Do you think that kmakfitness would ever, and this is maybe something you haven't considered or have considered, ever spin off into a Clutch Sports agency? Like you'd have a side brand or as part of the Kmac Fitness brand, but there's an agency for up and coming athletes.
You know what? I got asked this question on my Q&A. It was, what would you, if you want a coach or online coach, what would you be? And I actually said sports agency. I'd actually be a sports agent. And again, that question is phenomenal because like that's one thing I used to research about sports agency like back in like probably 2013, 14. Yeah, potentially. I couldn't deny it. Obviously, it would be great because I want to see it would have the same values as Clutch to me as well. Like I want to see the athletes be in the best possible position. It would definitely be interesting. Like this week, I was speaking to this company in India about mentoring coaches in India. Okay. So for me, that's like my own kind of Clutch, if that makes sense now.
Yep, I got you.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see like what that looks like. But again, it's something that I've never really thought about until you just mentioned that. But you know, I'm not against the idea at all because if that means helping other people, then why not? Especially athletes who sometimes are not in the best possible position of getting the best of themselves. So, you know, I think anything is possible. If Rich kind of did it from the airport, having a meeting with someone else, and then with the GOAT, LeBron, and then going in and suddenly, you know, being the best broker of like 2020 apparently, seeing him in Sports Illustrated, like that's inspiring to me. And you know, who knows? I think that's something that you made me want to think about right now. So yeah, and if it does happen, all credit to you and this podcast. You can go back and see the birth of
but that's the great thing, right? We've had a conversation. It's documented, like it's out there. You can come back to it in 10 years' time and be like, it was this conversation that made me go and do this.
Exactly, 110%. And that's the thing. Like, and that's the beauty of sports as well. I think sports inspired me to do loads of different things. Like it's like sport is the closest thing to war. Someone was telling me. And you will always like it's in the battlefield. And again, I'm not saying it's war in general, but like on a day-to-day basis, you can go watch a match, and it's the closest thing to emulate. You'll have a winner, loser. Yeah, occasionally, obviously, you have draws and stuff, but generally, you'll see greatness happening live, right? Like LeBron just hit a clutch 3 the other day
against the Warriors.
Yeah, against Warriors, and that's like
seeing 3 rims, right?
Exactly. And the beauty of that is, it's like you're seeing that, and it's going to be talked about in maybe 20 years' time.
Yep.
Right? Like, you know, imagine when if we were in MJ's era, they talk about that shot against Craig Elo against Cleveland, and you know, we talk about the flu game and all that. Like it's so famous right now. Like there's actually shoes called the flu game shoes, and you know, they're getting sold for whatever money. Like that. My point is like sports has always inspired me, even with my own business right now. The way I think about it, like the way I think about transformations for me is like scoring in basketball. I want to average 25 plus every single year, and if I can do that consistently for 15, 20 years, I'm a Hall of Famer. I know there's no Hall of Fame in personal training, but
hey, well, you know what? They might as well start to be. And here we go. This is it. This is the Body Transformation Hall of Fame.
Exactly, and that's the thing. I may kickstart and say, look, you know, all professionals, like you get inducted in your first ballot or whatever. Like again, what's the merit to this? You've got to have a scoring system to that, right?
Yep.
But for me, it's that mentality. I have a very sporting mentality when it comes down to my own business. But if I never fell in love with sports, I wouldn't dare to be different as well. So, you know, that's my ode is always to sports. And, you know, when I say, like, you inspired me to get a Kobe painting done.
Yeah.
Like, I remember seeing your story and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I looked back and I was like, I literally held that picture, right? You know, in stories, you can just hold it. And I was looking at it, I was like, damn, that'd be quite inspiring to look at that every single morning.
It
and
is.
Just be like, Mamba mentality, right? And I got a picture painted like from scratch done of Kobe.
Oh, wow.
Massive one like this. And I'm getting it, I think, in 15 days' time. Basically, it's the one after his first championship when he just looks down with his hat. Yeah. And that image means a lot to me because it's like you're proud but not satisfied. I know the story, that story of Kobe is completely different, but the way I picture it is completely different for me as well.
But it's what you take from it, right? Like
it's what you make of it. Yeah,
it's what you make of it. I mean, you can take what you want from the game where he tore his Achilles, right? And he came back on. And he scored those two free throws, or the one free throw, and he went to the back and literally burst out into tears because he knew he wasn't going to be the same. He was like, I could be done. Came back, sure, he wasn't the same Kobe, but I mean, the dude could still put up 40, 50 if he wanted to, right?
He dropped 60 in his last game, so
he dropped 60 in his last game, and it wasn't. And you can say what you want about that last game. Nothing was handed to him. He earned those 60 points. There's a whole rumor about how Gordon Hayward stepped over the line so he'd get the 60th point. No, that's BS. Like that would be disrespect to Kobe. Like Kobe would probably pull him up after the game and be like, "What are you doing? Like, why did you do that?" And then he'd make it public. And it's Kobe, right? So, but to transition slightly, I know music also plays a big part in your life, and I think first and foremost, what do you listen to in the gym? Like, because some people listen to classical music, others don't listen to music.
Yeah.
I'm a Meat Mill type of guy.
Okay.
When I'm in the gym, I want flexing on. I want that high energy, and if I slip into a spot where I need something different, there's a different gear is required, I actually revert to gospel music.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Makes sense.
Black gospel music, and it's so uplifting.
Yeah, I church music makes sense. I think you hear a lot of church music, and sometimes, like, I've heard in Big Sean songs, and it's very like uplifting in that moment, and you're like, wow, I feel super inspired right now. It makes sense, and that's the reason why also people probably go to church. But that can be another, like, a completely different scenario in discussion altogether, right? But for me, that's a phenomenal question. It's a lot of, so it used to be a lot of DMX, it still is, RIP DMX. I was a huge DMX fan, like, growing up as well, and I remember listening to that. He has that one classic album, If It's Dark As Hell Is Hot, I think that's what it's called. I may have butchered the name completely, but I have a playlist as well. I think it's somewhere in online as well, on Spotify somewhere, and basically it's a lot of Meek, a lot of DMX, it's old school 50 Cent, so a lot of old school hip hop I've got, and then obviously a couple of new school stuff as well. Like Meek is probably the newest of the school there. Rick Ross,
Odd Drake. Rick in there.
Yeah, you got to put some Rick Ross in there, especially. Wale, Rick Ross, Meek Mill, Ambition.
Yes. Oh wow! You know what? I had a friend introduce me to that song. We were in sixth form. She was like, "You ever heard this? You ever heard this?" I was like, "Nah, I've never been into Wale." First song that I got introduced to, introduced to Wale about was Ambition. And again, it hit different. Just hit different.
Yeah, and it inspired me a lot. I remember listening to that "Stay Scheming" with Rick Ross, Drake, and
it's got a hard beat.
Yeah, very amazing beat. And I think that music, it always takes you to a place as well, right? Like, this is DMX. Like, I remember I've got also Jay-Z in there, obviously my favorite of all time. So I've got Jay-Z, Numb Uncle is a big one.
Why is Jay-Z favorite of all time?
He spoke to me differently when I started listening to him, if that makes sense. So when I started listening to him about probably 2004, and again, it didn't happen straight away, but his words just made sense to me. The flow made sense to me. And again, a lot of people in that period was like, you listened to Nelly, you listened to who else did you listen to? 50 Cent.
It's like Nelly, 50, Neo, all of these guys.
It's so different, right? Like, again, it was one that you kind of, with Nelly and, with those guys, like, you don't resonate to those words because it's very much like an R&B kind of vibe to it. And you're 9 years old, you don't really care about R&B in that moment. But with Jay-Z's music, it was different. And then I went back to his catalog, and I remember going back into like Reasonable Doubt, his first ever album, and I was like, this is amazing, because it was just like Jay-Z in his, like, it's built up over time, right? It's his life. They always say your first album is your best album, and I look back on it, I'm thinking it could be possibly right for Jay-Z, because what he spoke about was just poetic, and anyone can resonate to that, in my opinion. Like, I think I don't know if it's D Rules or Can I Live, talks about 95 is how you live your life. I ain't trying to live my life. I'm trying to go above average, basically. It's one of the lines there. And that always stayed with me since high school. And again, that's the reason why all of this, like, you become biased to your own thoughts. So if you're like, I want to live a live life, you look for what rapper says that. Now, you're not trying to be the next Jay-Z, but you're trying to be like, oh, Jay-Z said that.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, right? Because, like, I listen to rap in the house. Like, my parents, I was brought up on Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Michael, despite everything that's gone wrong and the allegations against him and what's come out in the news post his death, I still believe he made some of the most amazing music in the world. Like he did involve some change. Like you think about the Earth song and things like that. So Michael was a massive part of my life. But when we moved to hip hop and rap, there was always this like thing in the house. It's like you can never play it out loud because they swear and they do this and they do that in it. And my dad was like, yeah, but you're not from the hood. Like you don't live that life. Like how could he relate to it? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how I can never relate to it. I don't know how you relate to Michael, but there's a drive in there that I resonate with. There's a drive in there, like you said, that you pick up on, and it gets you into your gear that you keep rolling through. So when you hit that dark spot, you go back to that ambition. You go back to that Jay-Z song. You go back to that 50 Cent song, and it picks you up and it gets you into gear. It puts you into first, or whatever the uphill gears are, right? And you start chugging back into it, and you can get that box spinning again. They still don't get it to this day. They still don't, right? So I have to. It's headphones, or it's like when they're out the house. But and I just whack it up at full volume. But it's always been like that, and I definitely agree with you. There's something about Jay-Z, and maybe it's because it's his life and it's so raw, and he's never ever sugarcoated it. Because he'll openly say, I was a dealer. Yeah. Like this was me, and he'd point and be like, this is me. This was me. This is my life. Right? And then you look at where he is now, and he's, doesn't talk about it, but he's uplifted the black community in America.
Completely.
You never say, a news alert will come out. Jay-Z's donated 30 million to this or whatever, right? And you're like, wow, this is phenomenal. Because when you get to that stage, what are you supposed to do with that much money?
Exactly.
And that's the marketing behind Rock Nation, just Rockefeller Records. Just the dude was just so smart.
Again, that's another thing as well, right? I think a lot of people think Jay-Z is just a musician. I've always paid attention to his other endeavors in his life. Like he just mentioned Rock Nation. They also have an agency.
Yes,
Rock Nation. They got like we completely go on the thing. Jay-Z's an agent as well, and he has agents within that. He's got Kevin Durant. He's got like CC Sabathia. He just got. By the way, he's just got a new thing called Rock Lit, which is like he's going to publish books. And
oh, really?
Yeah, and Rich Paul is writing a memoir of his life on there. So it's like, and again, it's a beautiful element because I was like, oh yeah, Rich is also an agent, and so is obviously that's Clutch, and then you have Rock Nation. But they spoke about like, look, we just need
collaborate.
Yeah, because look, why can't we collaborate? And it's funny because Rich mentioned that in one of his podcasts. It's like, the worst thing about us agents, we don't talk to each other, we don't collaborate. And then
they only end up talking to each other when they're in the meetings, right? And they're like, or a client goes and becomes a free agent. That's the only time they're ever talking.
Exactly. So that's why I think, for me, his music was like, okay, you can relate to it an album at a time. Like you can relate to like, okay, if I'm like I remember I started working like legally when I was 15, and I say legally, like I was like literally a month before my 16th birthday, and they gave me a job, and I was like, look, I wanted to hustle. I was like, I've always been like a hustler from a young age, and I was like, okay, I want to hustle. For me, Reasonable Doubt resonated to me because in that moment, it was just him talking about hustling. Right now, and again, I don't know where I'm at in my life. Maybe Blueprint 1 right now, but at the same time, it's like there's a moment there's a Jay-Z quote for everything in your life. In that moment.
There is.
God says that. He always says like in his book he said that, and I was like, wow, that makes sense because I look back on like Jay-Z's lyrics and I'm like, there's a moment for every age you're at. There's always something that you can resonate to, and a lot of people don't get it. Like a lot of people who are now going to be in their 20s, early 20s, they're not going to. You're probably a rarity in my opinion, but a lot of people are not going to get like why Jay-Z's good because they only know Jay-Z now.
Yeah, and look, like you can talk all you want about music and like who's the best and who's the GOAT and whatever, and like your Mount Rushmores, but when you think about it, he uplifted a huge amount of people. Like he brought some of these artists that you hear today into the industry. Sure, things have gone wrong, things have gone right. It's just part and parcel of business. Jay-Z Jigga he's a different breed. He's a different cat.
And also, I highly recommend his book. It's not actually written by him. It's by another dude. But it's basically called From Street Corner to Street Office. And he literally talks about his life, how he's smart as a businessman. Because obviously, like, he's never had formal education. That's the amazing part about it. But he said it's all come from the drug game. Like,
but the drug game's a complicated game. Like, when you really think about it, from a business point of view, they are some of the most intellectual individuals. when it comes to like, one, you've constantly got to be alert of your surroundings. Sure, it's illegal. We're not condoning it, but when you look at it from an eye of business, you're like, wow, these guys are intellectual. Like, if you're doing it properly, you're earning proper money, and you're like, what's a great one? Power, right? The TV series Ghost. I always put my head when I need to be in business. I always used to be like, I'm Ghost. I just need to be like Ghost.
So I'm Ghost. This is
yeah. Look, Pablo, like the dude was smart about it. It's illegal, but like you said, it's intellectual. It requires some level of thinking. Sure, you haven't got A grades, but A grades and street grades are two different things. You can be book smart, and then there's street smart, and I take street smart every day of the week.
That's what, and I 110% agree with that, because even now as a company, when I'm hiring people, I couldn't care less about their education. And that sounds quite crazy, because people are going to look at me like, what do you mean you don't care about education? But I'm like, the truth is, like, the education means a lot, but until I see initiative, I see street smarts, and they're able to have that soft skills, it's very difficult to mold that. Like, you can be
Absolutely.
the smartest person in the room with just the books, but if you can't talk to someone, it's very difficult for me to say to you, open arms, come to the team, and let's get transformations, because it's a people game. You know, we're speaking to people every single day, and it's how you cultivate that message which will enable change. Now, if you can't do that and you're just giving out like cold hard facts just from books, people are not going to feel that emotion, and then they're essentially going to be turned off. And I've seen that within our industry, because I've had people who I've worked with in terms of coaches, and they've all been like amazingly book smart. When it comes down to people, completely different. And I think that's what
people, right?
Yeah, that's what music has probably taught me. You know, just the whole like street, because they talk about the streets. Then you're trying to figure out what's happening in the streets, really, truly, and that's what it teaches you.
I think drill, and you know, the UK scene will get to that point where, you know, in 20 years time we'll realize like, actually these guys were smart about the decisions they were making. Like Skepta and this lot and Kano and these OGs, what they're doing in about 10 years time, or what they've done, will come into fruition, and you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, they actually made some good decisions. Like they were pioneers for the generations.
Yeah, looking at Kano right now, like he came out P's and Q's in 2004.
Yeah.
Right, and he still makes music, and that's the beauty of like, and he's a phenomenal actor. And like Top Boy was amazing,
phenomenal. Just like the dude didn't release anything, came back on and Top Boy was done whenever, right? Came back and did the season 3, and the dude can act, like he can actually act. Like, sure, it might have been his life at some point, but like what he's done. And he's not exposed, but he's shown that's a way of life in the UK. Like, things like that happen. I will never be able to say that I was ever from those ends. I will never, ever be able to say that. Why? Because my parents put me in this scenario. The reason that, you know, we're doing this right now is because of them. I have to attribute all of it to them. The only reason we're able to do it is because of me, because I've got the drive to get up and wake up and do it with you and sit here. But there are people that live like that day to day. And he's able to portray that phenomenally through... One, he's on the album, like he's on the music as well. To then be able to act on top of that, don't give these people enough credit aside the music and what they do.
Exactly. I look back at someone like Bashi as well. He's phenomenal. He used to be a bus driver.
Who's this?
Bashi. He's like an actor as well now, and I think he was in one of the Top Boys. But he's great. Like a lot back in, I think when I was in high school, he used to release a lot of music, and it was very, very good. Now he's like a top actor in LA. Like he's literally like a really, I think he portrayed one actor in the 50s, a black guy who moves into LA in a white neighborhood, and how he's portrayed there. And it's just phenomenal. And again, he's always like, if you go on his Instagram right now, it's just, when I see the growth, because I remember he used to like be a bus driver locally to us, and then seeing that now, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. But like I said, I don't think these guys get enough credit, especially I think in the UK scene. They don't get enough credit. Like, you know, we talk about Jay-Z there, but like even our own like artists, they don't get enough. I think now it's changing. You know, you look at the Krypton Conans of the world. You look at, you know,
and they're diversifying. Look, Croydon, it's Creps and Cones, isn't it?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Genius, just genius.
Just creating businesses and opportunities, and just I think, like I said, it will change as, you know, the industry becomes more and more defined with our own identity, right? Because eventually, like the British identity was always like, let's sound a bit American, or let's try and do this the American way. Now it's very much like, no, we have our own identity. The way we want to, if we want to have a punchline about football, we will have a punchline about football, right? And I think that's the beauty of it. Like even AJ Tracy, his new album is an ode to like The Last Dance.
Yeah.
Right. And I love that because I'm like, cool. You know, you loved it. Why not? Why go for it? Whereas some people be like, oh, this basketball chat, I don't get it. Whatever. Someone talking about the Euro step. We know what the Euro step is, right? But someone else may not know it. But at the same time, I loved it because I was like, okay, I love like he's still using. Like,
and he's blending that. He's
yeah,
just blending it perfectly.
Exactly, and it works. He's got a cool song called Kukoc, Tony Kukoc's, ode to Tony Kukoc. It's one of those where like, because I get it as a basketball fan, but I also understand if someone else who's not a basketball fan is gonna be like, what's Kukoc? What's this?
But when you think about it, the beat's good as well. So you can
Exactly.
enjoy the music irrespective of whether you understand the lyrics or not, or what he's saying.
And that could be then translated to, okay, what is this album like based on? You do your research and you're like, oh, Last Dance, let me go check that out. Then you're suddenly inspired by like seeing Jordan, and then obviously everyone knows who Jordan is.
I mean, before we wrap this up, The Last Dance, did you watch it when it came out?
I sound like a madman, right? But I watch it read back again every like weekend.
Do you?
Yeah, there's something about it that it helps me lock in, like into, I don't know, like start my week.
Okay.
Like I watch it like nearly every Sunday.
Is there a particular episode that you watch?
I love the Kobe one where they're kind
Yep.
of, the boy meets world kind of thing situation.
It's almost like, it's not a passing of the guard, but it's a,
Yeah.
in a way it's like that. Because you see these two greats, and sure, Kobe didn't get to play with him because, he retired again, but play against him, sorry. But that All-Star game was special.
Yeah. And it was like the way you talk about Kobe there as well. It's like Kobe never really changed. That drive was always still there, like, right? And that's amazing when you think about it. Like and that was like raw footage from '98, right? So they had that perception already in '98. Like no one really joked. I think people were there like, yeah, Kobe, and that's it. And then I remember MJ was like, yeah, if you don't pass the ball, he ain't getting the ball to me. Whatever.
He's got to come to me. He's got to come to me. He's like, I'm going to bust his ass all the way down the court on defense, and he's going to come to me.
He goes, Atletico boy, better sit down or whatever. And it was just like, it made me laugh out loud. It was just like, that's hilarious. But MJ was like that. I really loved the early episodes. It was just setting the tone towards the journey. And I think it kind of resonates. I kind of resonate to that because I'm kind of doing that with my own kind of journey right now. I'm setting the tone. So you kind of look back, again, it's a bias, right? It's the whole confirmation bias that we all end up having. But for me, it's kind of going back into that and saying, all right, like this is the early days, and how was he in the early days? And then how does he go from like, the kid, because eventually I'll have to do the same thing with my own business, which is take a step back from trying to get 25 a game. And I want to distribute to every single one, right? We're going to have the triangle offense.
That doesn't mean you can't still get your triple-double.
Exactly, yeah. So
you're
it's
just
like
going to be doing your 10. You're going to be doing your 10, 10, and 10.
Exactly. So it's finding that for myself. But I can resonate to Jordan right now, like on his early days when he was trying to win every single game. And I'm like, I'm in the same mode right now.
That I think it was the first season they went to the finals. Not the finals, it was the conference finals, and they lost to Boston, right?
Yeah.
And he was on restricted minutes, wasn't he?
Well, what happened was he was in restricted minutes in the season, and then they got into the playoffs because he was like, I'm just going to score regardless. And
there was that one game where they were like to him, don't score.
Yeah.
And it was the last game, and he scored, and they pushed him into, and he was like, irrespective of what you say, I'm just built this way. I don't go in to lose. We're not in tanking mode. I will kill myself on the court so that we can get to the finals. If we don't, it's on me.
And that's the mentality that I have with body transformations. When people come to me, they're like, I only want to lose 5 kilos. I'm like, why have that limiting belief? I know you want to do more than that. Like 5 kilos is 5 kilos. You can lose that in a month if you wanted to. And then what? It's like, why don't we go above and beyond? What's the dream, effectively? Right?
And you go chase that dream.
Yeah, let's go chase that dream. I know you want to be drastically different. That's the reason why you reached out to me in the first place, because you've known I've kind of achieved that with most people. So what's your dream? And then they kind of open up and they're like, you know what? The abs wouldn't hurt. And then eventually when they get there, that's when, we talk about the out body experience. Yeah. When they're in that photo shoot, when their photographer's there taking professional images, they look back and they're like, whoa, is that really me? And that's when there's like, they're a completely different person. And I've seen people change completely from like, I've seen people from day one, they're like quite like, I remember like having this conversation with a lady. I was like, you've changed mentally a lot in like 3 years. She was like, yeah, like, I used to be quite uptight in 2018, 2019. I was like this. And in 2020, like on the day of the photo shoot, she was like, I'm like this now. And that's the experience, and that's the step that mentally people have taken as well to get to that place. But, you know, no one will get it until they kind of go through it. Usually. That's why the spirituality comes in. It's like everyone can talk to me about like ayahuasca until I actually do it myself. And then I really find my own experience within that. That's when you really figure out like, oh wow, this was completely out of body.
It was the same thing for me with yoga. I can't explain it to anyone, but I was reading this book by Sadhguru, and he was explaining yoga and his experience with yoga. And I said to my mum, I don't want to do this anymore. Don't book me in for any more sessions. And our yoga teacher Gita was constantly trying to get me back. I was the only young male in a class full of women. And I used to go to the earliest class, 5:30 a.m. or 6 o'clock. And I can't explain it. I read this book. I went to sleep for like, it must have been about half an hour. Got up, went downstairs, and I said to my mum, what time's yoga tomorrow? She's like, I thought you didn't want to go. Da, 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 da. I was like, I cannot explain it to you, but I'm coming to that session. And for literally for a year, every single day, it was like, during the pandemic, every single day it was up, get on the mat, up, get on the mat. And my dad I think he lost 15 kgs. Wow, and it was phenomenal seeing him get to that point. And sure, we did it unhealthily. Like, it was pretty much, we were doing it like MMA athletes every single day. It was like, how much water can you get rid of in your body? Go weigh yourself. And that's your personal best. And every day it was like that. And the weight was just shedding off it. I lost 10 kgs in a month.
Oh, wow.
Which is dangerous because I'm feeling the effects of it now. But it was just the situation we were in.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you went through that with yoga. Someone else goes that through with a different sport altogether.
Absolutely.
And that's the beauty of something physical.
Yeah.
Because there's always something that you're either challenging, it's too challenging, or you go through something and you win. Like CrossFit athletes probably feel this exact same way.
Oh,
right?
I'd love to get into CrossFit at some point.
And that's another, like, it's another thing I've always looked at, like documentaries. You watch a CrossFit documentary, there's loads on Netflix.
They're crazy.
They're wide different as well.
They're crazy. They are crazy. I have a friend in the US who started, and I was like, why CrossFit? She was like, why not? She was like, why not? And she was like, it's a great way to get fit. You have so much fun. It's not just benching iron. It's the same thing over and over again. There's a physical aspect to it. Like, these guys are like, they're marathon runners. They swim thousands of kilometers. Like, they cycle and they lift weights.
Yep. It's like you can call it the perfect athlete, basically, trying to be. And that's the beauty of it as well, right? So everyone has their own versions of what they want to get into and what they want to really achieve. Like, obviously for me, it came to lifting, obviously iron and getting into that, and bodybuilding is like the one that I really, really love. Like for you, it's yoga, and again, it all comes into physical. You can all read about it, but until you go and action it, you'll never feel it. If anyone's on the fence with certain things, like read about it, but then go and action. Like if you read about it and didn't do anything about it, you wouldn't have felt anything different. You just would have been like, it's cool, but then 1 year in, 1 year, or literally listen to it or reading it, and then I'm done. Absolutely. I think it's that limit there where you have to like action anything you're trying to achieve. And I think once you do that, that's when you really see what you're capable of as an individual. Like whether it's lifting weights or whether it's yoga, like you realize, oh wow, I've done it now for a year and a half. And you look back on that experience and you're like, wow, this is how I am now.
You go through your peaks and troughs, right, with it. Exactly, you go through your experiences with your bad experiences, your good experience. I'm having a slump with it right now. But you just stay consistent. You get back to a point, and it's like life. You go through bad spots, you go through good spots. And my friend Mussin, on a bad day, whenever we have a bad day, we call each other, and he goes, some days good, some days shit.
Yep. That's how it is.
It's just life. It's the same with the gym. It's the same with working out. It's the same with sport. You win some, you lose some. You can pick your opponents like Floyd and go 50-0.
That's a fascinating discussion as well. That's going to be a fascinating discussion that we can also have about Floyd. But I think it's also one you can just ask yourself, what would Kobe do? Like, you know, Kobe, he would always have, like, everyone has bad days. I think the greats will have bad days, but they don't see it as a bad day. They just see it as like, all right, well, it is what it is, and just get back into it. Like even me, where I wake up every single morning, I'm like, man, I'm so lucky to do what I do. But don't get me wrong, I will have a period in my time where I'm like, damn, I can't bother to do this today. But I have to stop myself and think, 10 years ago, this was never available. Like, you've got to embrace this right now. Like 10 years ago, if you said to yourself, like, you'll be an online coach, running a business with 2 of your friends in there, right? Doing it as a team. pause. Just pause that and just think about it. And that's when I'm like, all right, game time, let's go. That's it. That's all I need to think about. But like, you're always going to have that, you know, it's not all going to be rainbows and sunshine. You know, it's going to be rain sometimes. You just got to, can you still walk in the rain is the question. And the answer is most likely, yeah, you can, unless you've got an injury or whatever, but most likely you can.
I like that. And that's a beautiful way to bring this to a close. But before we do, there's something I like to spring on the guests. It's nothing crazy. I watch, and you'll probably resonate with this. I watch I Am Athlete with Brandon Marshall, Ocho Cinco. Yes. I mean, those arms of yours, you're looking like Ocho right now, yeah?
You're trying to
And I remember watching one episode, and they were like, who do you want to see in the chair? I want to flip that question to you. Who do you want to see in the ordinary experience that, you know, 1, we can empower, 2, we can help tell their story, and, you know, 3 is just an individual that you feel has a story to share?
Ooh, that's a really, really, really good one. Who have you interviewed, or who are you trying to interview right now? Like,
Go on.
Who are you trying to interview right now?
Anyone, like the ordinary experience. It's not like what I do. I pick the hardest thing possible. I didn't pick a niche. So it's everything and anything. I just want to tell ordinary stories. It's similar to how Vice Media works in a way of telling stories, but I want to go for the uninterrupted or all the smoke of empowering the ordinary person. Because we've got so much knowledge clogged up in our heads. There's so many experiences. Like, there's a brown guy on my screen right now, who is 1, a bodybuilder, you know, 2, runs a company, 3, is inspired by sport in a way that he then applies to his businesses. Like, where are you going to have that type of conversation?
Yeah, you're not.
Like, the likelihood is you have to pull that out of a person. You have to get to know them. I've never met you in person. I can't freaking wait.
Yeah, I can't wait either. It'll be really fun. That's a good question. I'm going to go bold and say I like this guy called Patrick Bet David. It'll be very, very difficult to get him on a podcast, but I think if you can get him, he will be one of the best guests you'll ever have. Like, a guy who came from Iran, made it into America in terms of like into the corporate world, but also just he's built a business up amazingly well. He's got an amazing YouTube channel called Valuetainment, which has like 3 million subs.
Okay, that's going to be a tough one.
Super tough one, but if you can get him, I'd have that on the loop, in my opinion.
Okay.
Like, why not aim for the highest of the high, right? Like, I personally think always.
So we got one up there. Like, give me someone at a grassroots level, someone that you maybe interact with on a daily basis. Could be your colleagues. It could be someone that you've come across through your transformation journey, and the people that you help and the people that you help change their lives.
Yeah. We're actually doing a case study on one of my clients now. He's a cancer survivor. And he went through his transformation on Wednesday. He's one that, like, really kind of, I was like, wow, this is a fascinating subject, because he went through cancer and then, you know, utilized this new change to kind of say, look, I don't, you know, that's not going to just define me. I'm here now. I want to kind of go to the next level. He would be a fascinating one, in my opinion. I'd also say, like, one of my old clients, Dikshesh Patel. Okay. You probably seen him maybe on Clubhouse as well. But we went through like an amazing, he'll talk about fitness in a very spiritual manner as well. And when we went through a journey where he lost like 50 kilos, we had this saying called 50 by 50, and he lost like an amazing amount of weight. And he was really inspiring in that sense, where we're a case study on him, you know, we had a podcast on him. He even got to Men's Health magazine, his story.
Wow.
Yeah, so I actually think his story would really, really be fascinating, especially to the older generation of, you know, Asians who don't always take fitness that seriously. And he kind of broke that mold. So I think his story would have been, I think would be fascinating. But yeah, if you can go to the top, Rich Paul, Patrick McDavid would be like top 2 in my opinion.
Hey, if I can get Rich, but Rich Paul, if you're listening to this, I'm coming to get you. We're going to tag you in this. At some point, I'd love to sit down with you and have a conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to be here as well. Like a fly in the wall, or I'd be a cover for something.
We'll bring you in. We'll do a sit like you know, they do the Oscar roundtable talks.
Yes.
Like if we could do like stuff like that with athletes, people in business, things like that, and not. I find it weird putting this all in a silo. Like, you've got to come to me for this. If we can have a roundtable talk where obviously you're doing your own thing, I'm doing my own thing, but you know, we can pick your brains in a way that is so different to the way. Naive, I think would be the word, to the way like someone in business would. Because there are certain things that are givens when you understand a person. When Lebron talks to Rich, I'm going to assume that he talks to him like someone in business, like also as a friend. And when he doesn't understand something, he talks naively. We don't understand what it's like to be Rich Paul. We don't understand what it's like to be Maverick Carter. And they talk to athletes, they talk to business people. Like, you talk to Magic Johnson, you're talking to Magic.
Yeah.
You talk to Shaq, you're talking to Shaq Diesel. This is master marketer. Like,
yeah.
You're talking in that capacity. So, I think that's a great idea at some point. Maybe something we can do in the future. Roundtable, we get on athletes, up-and-coming athletes, or people in sport, or business people and things like that, and we have these, like, bigger conversations rather than sticking it in our own silos.
I would love that, because it's also tapping into, like, even if it's Asian, like, let's say, for example, we don't know about an Asian athlete right now who's up and coming. It would be great to have a discussion with them and just see where their mindset is at. Because obviously there's going to be loads of Asian, and I've actually predicted this now, where I'm like, there's going to be a lot more Asian athletes now, probably stemming from our generation, or our kids' generation.
Yep.
Than ever, in my opinion, because the way we are now going to be wired is going to be like, if you don't go to uni, fine, it's fine. That's how we're going to.
There's so much more you can do. There is so much. Like, my brother does an apprenticeship, and he's going on his path, and sure, he gets a degree out of it. I got my degree, but I don't use it.
Same. I mean, my degree was basically doing my body transformation. That's how I say it. Like, I knew when I went to university, I'm like, yeah, the degree is degree, but at the same time, I'm going to go in there, like, go 0 dark 30 on my body.
I like that. I like that. I might even name the episode that 0 dark 30.
Yeah, go for it. And again, going with that, like, with that body transformation, like, I know I spent, like, whatever the money is, 30K a year, but I look back on it, I'm like, it was worth it in that moment, because I knew what I wanted to do post. A lot of people just go in there because it's like, it's the road, right? There's no shortcuts. It's just literally a straight road, and you're like, let's just follow that straight road. No one ever looks right or left. Think, okay, what happens if I did, like, just go off?
Sometimes you've got to take alternative routes. They get you to the same destination, but sometimes you have to pay a toll charge.
Exactly. That's so true.
Dude, it's been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I think a longer conversation is needed at some point. And I'd love to jump on your podcast if you're up for it, and we can have a conversation around what it's. You know what would be great if we could do a YouTube. When I finished finding my niche in crypto, I want to jump back into the lifestyle design, and I'd love to do a transformation with you and what it's like to do the online coaching and things like that. But we can talk about that later.
Yeah, like your experience and how it's done. Yeah, I think that'd be quite
exactly.
Cool.
And we can go through the ins and outs and stuff like that. But absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on and spending Saturday morning with me.
Pleasure's mine.
All right, I'll speak to you soon. Yeah.
All right, take care.